So, what do Warren Buffett, Steven Spielberg, and Bill Gates have in common? You might say they're all wealthy and successful, but that's not all. They're also self-described introverts. Now, Karl Moore is a business professor at McGill University's Des Hotels School of Management, and he trains CEOs in leadership skills. He's writing a new book on the power of introverts in the workplace called Introverts in the Executive Suite, and he joins me this morning. Good morning, Karl Moore.
Good morning, Peter.
So, why did you want to research introverts in a business environment?
Well, what is it? When you look at the leadership literature, it all assumes all leaders are extroverts, which is utter nonsense. I have a CEO class at McGill. We have 23 CEOs show up in the semester, 2 a night. So people like Michael Sabia from The Case, Mike Roach from CGI, Caitlin Revenesco from Air Canada, so on. And of the 23, about 25 to 30% of those CEOs of big companies here in Canada said they're introverts. So I've been doing research. I've done about 150 interviews of CEOs and other senior executives, and about 25 to 30% are introverts, which is contrary to what the literature and what most people would think.
And why would we assume that someone who's in a leadership position, in a business leadership position, be an extrovert?
Well, some things you want an extrovert has, and you seem to want in leadership, is kind of someone who's noisy, who gives an inspiring speech, who creates a bit of a stir when they come in the room, and then you have a sense of confidence in. And those are things which are useful parts of being a leader, but actually, some of the things that introverts are good at are important for today's leadership, more important than 10 or 15 years ago.
So when you began your research, did you have any preconceived notions, ideas about what introverts versus extroverts would bring to the table?
Well, I'm an extrovert, and so it's a bit self-serving, but I thought, well, this is what you want to be, is noisy and that sort of thing. But when you begin to look at it, today's leadership is a bit different than in the past when I worked for IBM. So today's leader, you've got to spend more time listening than you did in the past. Partly that's because ideas are more apt to come from the frontline troops rather than you just sitting in your office and smoking a cigar, like I remember executives doing when I was a young guy. So something where ideas are coming from the front lines. We're moving more rapidly than we used to. We have to be more innovative. So one of the great strengths of an introvert is they're apt to listen better. And that's something you need in today's business world to be a good, successful business person.
And when you say listening better versus being, more loud, showing, exuding confidence, I'm trying to get a sense of what effect that has on people and sort of how they then view business leaders.
Well, it's interesting because I interviewed Pierre Boivin, who was the CEO of the Montreal Canadiens. We talked about Saku Koivu, great ceremony last week. Saku is a Finn, like my son, my mother's Finnish, an introvert. He was a quiet leader. And Pierre said that he was a great leader. He didn't make a big noise. He didn't have to be the center of attention. He didn't come to the dressing room of the Canadiens and give a stirring speech. He led by example, and he was a quiet leader that we had great confidence in. And when you think about the reception of the fans in the Bell Center last week, what a beloved figure. But not a guy who is up there giving a great speech, but when he spoke, we listened because he spoke with quiet authority. So I think you can have a lot of confidence as a quiet, introverted leader, but it's a different kind of sense you get from the person. Claude Mongeau is the CEO of CN. So 24,000 people, big, important company in Canada and in this province, headquartered in Montreal. He's an introvert. And he's a quiet leader. When I just read reflection journals of my 40 or so McGill students writing about the leaders, and he grew on you. He didn't grab you in some of the ways some of the other leaders did, but he grew on you. At the end, you go, I'd follow this guy into battle because of the strength he has. But Claude makes the point, though, is when he leaves his floor in the Le Gauchetière, he puts on his game face and acts like an extrovert. I wrote an article in the Globe arguing that I, as an extrovert, when I leave my office, I don't have a floor, I have to act like an introvert to be an effective leader. And so we're saying effectively is you got to learn from each other to be a good leader. You got to act extroverted at times and introverted at other times, and that's kind of a new idea.
And so, how does someone who might be introverted have to become more of a people person, if I can put it that way, or more loud? You express their ideas maybe a bit better.
See, introverts are great people because they listen to people, because they are good one-on-one. They're good in small groups. They're good at actually coming up with ideas. Just don't press them to give it right away on the spot. Give them a bit of time. So they can be very powerful leaders and very much people, but in a different way than an extrovert. But there's times, like as CEO, Claude gets in a elevator in Calgary. If he ignores everyone, people are nervous. So the same Hubert Lacroix from the CBC, when he gets in an elevator in Toronto with his office in Montreal here in Quebec City, if he ignores everyone, we all get nervous. What have I done wrong? And does he hate me? Something wrong? That sort of thing is the question to ask yourself. So you act a certain part because it's important for that context. So sometimes you go to something, if you're a senior leader, you got to smile and shake people's hands and be warm to them because it's what's required. But at the end of the time, you're probably going to be a bit tired by the effort. Where at the end of a party, I go, oh, is there an after-dinner party? Because I'm an extrovert. At a certain point, I run out of energy and I go, that's enough. I need a break. But it's something where we've got to learn from each other, I think is a key point. But introverts can be great leaders, provide great confidence to people, but they do it a bit differently.
You mentioned Saku Koivu being an introvert and sort of the success that he had in the locker room. What, with regards to business, how would that advantage a business? I could see, for example, as a hockey team, leadership in that sense, but a business itself.
Well, look at Claude. I think he's done a great job at CN. And we can think of a bunch of other, Dominic Pella runs Shoppers Drug Market, about 50,000 people. Pierre Baudouin told me, and Paul Desmarais, both very, very senior leaders here in Quebec, they're introverts. Now, they act extroverted at times, but these are quieter leaders that we have enormous confidence in because it's interesting. I send my students down. I say, go find the CEO and bring him or her up from the lobby. And they kind of look at me and go, how do I know? And I'll say, you'll know. Because the CEO has a sense of confidence that they belong at the table. They're not the most important person, but they bring value. And whether they're introvert or extrovert, they communicate that sense of, I have value, I belong at the table, I have respect for other people, but I have something to be here. And I think of that sense of confidence that you can have whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, and a sense that you have real value to bring to the conversation. And at times, as a leader, I need to make decisions, which may be not popular, but if I listen to you and I listen to the other people, as long as you're listened to, you're more apt to allow me to make a decision and say, okay, that's fine. You're the leader. You can make the decision. Just make sure you listen to me these days. This is some of the power that you have, that it's not about being an extrovert and introvert. It's about the nature of leadership in today's world. And it's different. It's changed.
When you mentioned that nature of leadership, is there any difference in success between the two?
Well, it's interesting where an extrovert in their worst moments just demands attention. Demands be the center of attention. That's in their worst moments. And it's something like that, they can be too ego-filled. Now, you can have ego-filled introverts, but it tends to be more of a problem for the extrovert, just that need for attention, the need to win excessively. And that can be their downfall at times. It can tip into narcissism at times. That's what you got to be careful about.
So you've written a new book. What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, I guess to add to the literature, around the world, but to Canadian leaders saying that our view of leadership, I give a talk where I discuss how I've learned the most about leadership from 3 groups in the last 10 years, millennials, introverts, and women, which I'm none of those. And so something where it's saying our view of what leadership is has got to be more diverse than in the past, because when it's only right, it's also the nature of business and changing where ideas and innovation come from, that given those changes, we need to have greater diversity in our workforce and in our leadership teams to get to the end result of a more successful organization. So we need more women at the table. We need to have more introverts. We need more young people to be heard. It's interesting. I get reverse mentored by, I have 5 20-year-olds working for me at McGill, undergraduates. When I was their age, it was 95% one way. Today, it's about 75% I'm mentoring them. But 25% of the time, they're mentoring me as well. Social media, for example, that few would doubt that a 20-year-old knows social media better than I do. Now, I'm on Twitter a lot and stuff like that, so I actually know something. But there's lots of stuff they understand about today's world that what I knew when I was 20, a lot of that is simply irrelevant. I mean, there's some timeless truth, but a lot of the stuff I learned when I was 20 is no longer true or what we believe. So I'm reverse mentored. I listen to young people, and they teach me a lot. That's not only humility, but I think it's reality.
Karl Moore, thank you so much for your time this morning. Greatly appreciated.
My pleasure, Peter.